Malaysia and Guinea-Bissau to explore new avenues of cooperation. And also, Lee Jae-myung wins election as South Korean president. Hello and good afternoon. Salam Malaysia Dani, thanks for joining us. I'm Brendan Paul. Prime Minister Dr. Sri Anwar Ibrahim said the relations with Guinea-Bissau serve as a stepping stone for Malaysia to expand opportunities in African continent. He said both countries have reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening bilateral relations with focus areas, including the halal industry, Islamic finance, energy and capacity building.
President Umaru's visit is very significant. He has with that vision to work with us, to engage with Malaysia as a base for the ASEAN region, and we to accept the role of Guinea-Bissau to expand our relations, trade, investments, in various fields. This meeting, hopefully Petronas, FGV this evening, and to look at the potential both in Malaysia and also Guinea-Bissau, not only at the national level, but to then use it as a base to expand into the African sub-region and continent, and similarly to Malaysia and beyond.
Dr. Sri Anwar said this in a joint media conference with visiting Guinea-Bissau President Umaro Sissoco Embalo in Putrajaya. Meanwhile, President Embalo said his visit reflects the Republic's confidence in gaining experience from Malaysia.
To do a lot of them together. We have very good discussion. I am confident this visit is going to be fruitful visit, and I hope so. We're gonna learn a lot from the experience, from your experience, because we know Malaysia leading a lot in education, health, and then also industry also. We don't, for me, not only in South Asian, in the world. We are proud of that because we are the brother.
Earlier, President Embalo was accorded an official welcoming ceremony at the Perdana Putra complex. Embalo, who arrived yesterday, is making his first visit to Malaysia since assuming office in February 2020. The ceremony began with the playing of the national anthems of Guinea-Bissau and Malaysia. Embalo then inspected a guard of honour. Also present were Deputy Prime Minister Dr. Sri Fadillah Yusof, Transport Minister Anthony Loke, senior government officials and diplomats. Following the ceremonial protocols, President Embalo signed the guest book before proceeding to a bilateral meeting with Dato Sri Anwar. Malaysia and Guinea-Bissau established diplomatic relations in November 1974. In 2024, Malaysia's total trade with Guinea-Bissau amounted to 4.1 million ringgit. South Korea's centre-left leader Lee Jae-myung hailed voters' great decision as he was declared the winner of a snap presidential election early Wednesday, capping months of political chaos. 6 months to the day after ex-president Yoon Suk-yeol plunged the country into crisis with his disastrous declaration of martial law. Official results from the National Election Commission showed Lee had defeated conservative rival Kim Moon-soo, who had earlier conceded the race. Voter turnout was the highest in nearly 3 decades.
내일 당선자로 확정되는 그 순간부터 온 힘을 다해서 여러분들의 이 고통스러운 삶을 가장 빠른 시간 내에 가장 확실하게 회복시켜드리도록 하겠습니다.
Lee also promised to pursue dialogue, communication and cooperation between Seoul and its arch-enemy Pyongyang, with relations plunged to their lowest level in years under Yoon's hawkish approach. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Dr. Sri Anwar Ibrahim extended his warmest congratulations to Lee Jae-myung on winning the election as the president of South Korea. He said that this marks a turning point for South Korea, a nation that has emerged from a period of political turmoil through resilience and democratic resolve. Malaysia-South Korea ties were elevated to a strategic partnership in November 2024, a milestone reflecting both nations' shared ambitions. Dato Sri Anwar said Malaysia, as chair of ASEAN for 2025, hopes to see ASEAN play a more prominent role in South Korea's regional outlook, with South Korea currently chairs the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC. The Prime Minister also wished Lee wisdom and success in the journey ahead, adding that he looks forward to meeting him in Kuala Lumpur this October for the ASEAN Summit and again in Gyeongju, South Korea, for the APEC Economic Leaders meeting later that month. Lee formally began his 5-year term today after the National Election Commission, NEC, confirmed his election victory during a plenary session. And in other news, tensions between Elon Musk and Donald Trump erupted Tuesday as the world's richest man derided the president's key piece of economic legislation in a startling rupture days after leaving his position in the White House. Musk was lauded by the Republican leader as he left his advisory role atop Trump's Department of Government Efficiency last week, despite criticism over his failure to deliver on promises of radical spending cuts. It was not Musk's first comments on Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill, which is set to add $3 trillion to U.S. deficits over a 10-year horizon, despite deep cuts to health and food aid programs. But Musk's previous criticism was more restrained, with the Tesla and SpaceX magnate offering only that it undermined his cost-cutting efforts. On Tuesday, he said the bill being considered by Congress would burden citizens with crushingly unsustainable debt. His post laid bare an increasingly tense relationship between the White House and Musk. The spat came with House Republicans set to pass legislation sent from the White House to enshrine into law $9.4 billion of DOGE cuts, mostly money destined for public broadcasting and foreign aid. House Speaker Mike Johnson called Musk's comments disappointing, adding that he had walked the entrepreneur through the bill on Monday and that he seemed to understand. President Volodymyr Zelensky announced a shakeup in Ukraine's military on Tuesday, including the appointment to a new post of a commander who tendered his resignation over a deadly Russian attack. Zelensky, speaking in his nightly video address, said Major General Mikhailo Drapati, who offered to quit as commander of Ukraine's land forces over an attack on a training area, would now serve as the new commander of joint forces.
Провів сьогодні детальну нараду з нашими військовими Олександр Сирський, Андрій Гнатов, Михайло Драпатий та міністр оборони Рустем Умєров. Михайло Драпатий зосередиться виключно на бойових питаннях і призначений командувачем об'єднаних сил, щоб міг займатися фронтом. Фронтом на 100%. Що стосується системи сухопутних військ, особливо таких завдань, як тренування, підготовка, зміни в ТЦК і все, що з цим пов'язано, цим буде займатися інша людина.
He said the appointment had also been approved of Oleg Apostol as commander of paratroops and Robert Brovdi as commander of unmanned systems. The Ukrainian president also said he met with IAEA chief Rafael Grossi earlier in the day and that they discussed security threats at Zaporizhia's nuclear plant. 8 centers run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF, a U.S. and Israel-backed agency will temporarily close Wednesday for renovation, with distributions expected to resume on Thursday. An officially private effort with opaque funding, GHF began operations on 26 May after Israel completely cut off supplies into Gaza for over 2 months, sparking warnings of mass famine. However, GHF's first week of operations, in which it said it had distributed more than 7 million meals worth of food, has been marred by criticism. The Israeli military faces allegations of shooting into crowds of civilians rushing to pick up aid packages near GHF sites. The United Nations and major aid groups have refused to cooperate with the foundation over concerns it was designed to cater to Israeli military objectives. For decades, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, had spearheaded aid distribution in Gaza, with dozens of other organizations participating in efforts to assist the population. Israel has accused UNRWA of providing cover for Hamas militants, claiming that some of the agency's employees took part in the group's 7 October attack. The UN Security Council will vote Wednesday on a resolution calling for a ceasefire and unrestricted humanitarian access in Gaza, a measure expected to fail due to a US veto. In its the 15-member body's first vote on the subject since November, the United States, a key Israel ally, also blocked a text calling for an end to fighting. The new resolution demands an immediate, unconditional and permanent ceasefire in Gaza respected by all parties. It also calls for the immediate, dignified and unconditional release of all hostages held by Hamas and other groups, underlining a catastrophic humanitarian situation in the Palestinian territory. The resolution additionally demands the lifting of all restrictions on the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza. It will be put to vote at 4 p.m. local time on Wednesday, but several diplomats indicated that they expected the United States to wield its veto power. They added that the representatives from the 10 elected members of the Council who will introduce the text tried in vain to negotiate with the American side. Israel has faced growing international pressure to end its war in Gaza. That scrutiny has increased over flailing aid distribution in Gaza, which Israel blocked for more than 2 months before allowing a limited number of UN vehicles to enter in mid-May. But that, the United Nations said, was not enough to meet the humanitarian needs.
Contained in document F.
Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof announced his resignation on Tuesday, most likely ushering in a snap election hours after anti-Muslim politician Geert Wilders quit the right-wing coalition for failing to back tougher migration policies. Ministers from Wilders' PVV party will leave the cabinet, while the others will continue for now as a caretaker government. The withdrawal came just weeks before a NATO summit in the Netherlands and ushered in a period of uncertainty for the European Union's fifth largest economy and major exporter. Any election is unlikely to be held before October, and the fractured political landscape means formation of a new government may well take months. Anger over migration and the high costs of living are boosting the far right and widening divisions in Europe, just as it needs unity to deal effectively with a hostile Russia and an unpredictable and combative US president in the form of Donald Trump. Schoof had already handed in his resignation to King Willem-Alexander.
Een jaar geleden.
And yet to come, bus crash leaves 11 dead in Mexico. Colombia's Attorney General Luis Adriana Camargo strongly rejected the arrest warrant announced by Guatemala's Attorney General's office against her and called it unfounded and politically motivated. Guatemala's Attorney General's office had announced arrest warrants on Monday for a group of people, including Colombia's Attorney General and a former UN anti-corruption prosecutor, drawing condemnation from the Foreign Ministry in Bogota. The head of Guatemala's Special Prosecutor's Office Against Impunity, Rafael Curuchiche, said a Guatemalan court had issued arrest warrants for Camargo and Ivan Velasquez, a veteran Colombian prosecutor, on corruption charges. Curuchiche alleged in the video that Velasquez Velasquez led a criminal structure that benefited businessmen from the Brazilian construction company formerly known as Odebrecht. Velasquez won international praise for his work last decade as head of the UN-backed International Commission Against Impunity in Guatemala, CICIG, which in 2015 exposed a multi-million-dollar graft case that led to the resignation and arrest of former Guatemalan President Otto Pérez Molina. The CICIG later investigated Pérez Molina's successor, President Jimmy Morales, who ultimately shut down the commission in the country. Mexican federal authorities arrested 3 members of a criminal group linked to the kidnapping and murder of 5 musicians in the northeastern state of Tamaulipas during an operation. The arrests target individuals accused of violent crimes that have shocked the region, including the murder of 5 members of regional music band Grupo Fugitivo. The arrests were among the efforts by Mexican authorities to dismantle criminal organizations in Tamaulipas, a state known for high levels of violence. During the operation, authorities seized 800,000 Mexican pesos, or $41,575 in cash, 2 long guns, 3 shotguns, 400 cartridges, nearly 7 kilograms of drugs, including cocaine and methamphetamine, 14 doses of marijuana, and 12 vehicles. According to local media reports, a member of Grupo Fugitivo went missing on 25th May after a concert. Authorities discovered their bodies on 29th May inside a property in the city of Reynosa. Criminal violence has claimed more than 480,000 lives in Mexico since 2006 and left around 120,000 people missing. Mexican musicians have previously been targeted by criminal groups that pay them to compose and perform songs, glorifying the exploits of their leaders. A bus overturned on Tuesday on a highway in Mexico, leaving 11 people dead and more than 20 injured. Mexican authorities said the accident happened in the town of Gualahuizas in northeast Nuevo Leon state. The local Civil Protection Department said on social media that the bus was headed to Tampico in the neighboring state of Tamaulipas. According to media reports, the passengers were mostly tourists from that area. Video showed forensic workers carrying the bodies of the victims from a patch of grass next to the site of the accident. Road accidents in Mexico have multiplied in recent years, often due to poor vehicle maintenance, dangerous driving, or motorist fatigue. In one of the dateless accidents, a collision between a truck and a bus killed 38 people in the southeastern state of Campeche in February. France plans to ban smoking on beaches, in parks outside schools and in other locations from July to protect children. Now the ban, which follows similar measures across an increasingly smoking-averse Europe, will exempt cafe outdoor terraces and will not apply to electronic cigarettes. Starting on 1st July, beaches, public parks and gardens, school areas, bus shelters and sports facilities will be affected by the new measure. The Health Ministry said smoking kills around 200 people every day in France. Smoking in France is at historic lows, according to a report published this month by the French Observatory for Drugs and Addictive Trends. It found that just under a quarter of people aged 18 to 75 smoke daily, the lowest since it began keeping records in the late 1990s. The UK announced a similar smoking ban last year. Some Spanish regions have banned smoking on beaches, while Sweden has outlawed smoking in outdoor restaurant terraces, bus stops, train platforms and schoolyards since 2019. And in other news, global airlines wrapped up a 2-day summit on Tuesday, sticking to a target of net zero emissions by 2050, but voicing fresh worries about the availability of greener fuels and new planes. The International Air Transport Association, which represents about 350 airlines, said hitting the target would cost carriers $4.7 trillion or $174 billion a year, at least some of which is likely to be passed on as higher fares. Despite earlier signs that some airlines were growing more skeptical about the chances of reaching the target, IATA avoided reopening a sensitive debate on net zero as bosses pointed to a narrow window for the industry to meet its goals. But they stepped up criticism of energy companies, accusing them of adding arbitrary charges in Europe and plane makers that have failed to deliver efficient jets on time. In April, IATA Director General Willie Walsh had issued a warning that the net zero emissions agenda was sliding off course in comments that appeared designed to trigger discussions about the challenges. On Tuesday, Walsh said there had been no talk of any delay in the target at this week's annual meeting in New Delhi. The industry's sustainability efforts are largely centered around plant-based sustainable aviation fuels. But with current supplies covering just a fraction of airlines' fuel needs, carriers urge governments and energy firms to do more. And in sports, Malaysian men's doubles pairs move into second round of Indonesia Open. Stay with us. World number one doubles pair Gozafeh and Nur Izzuddin Mohammad Rumzani had to sweat it out to advance to the second round of the Indonesia Open after defeating Taiwan's Fang Chi Li and Fang Zhen Li last night. In the match held at Istora Senayan, Jakarta, the Malaysian professional duo came from a set down, losing the first 17-21 to win the next two sets 21-17, 21-14. Awaiting Zafeh Nur Izzuddin in the second round this Thursday are compatriots Nur Muhammad Azrin Ayub Tanwi Kyong, who successfully defeated China's Xie Haonan Zheng Weihan 21-12, 21-17. The tie was Zafeh and Nur Izzuddin's seventh time facing the Taiwanese pair, with the Malaysians winning 6 of the encounters. Also advancing to the next round are the 2025 Malaysia Masters champion Man Wei Chong T Kai Wun. The world number 7 ranked pair had no trouble, taking just 21 minutes to beat their opponents from the US, Chen Ziyi, Presley Smith, 21-6, 21-11 in straight games. Wei Chong Kai Wun will also meet fellow Malaysians pair, Wan Arif Wan Junaidi, Yap Roy King, who were given a walkover over France's Eloy Adam. Leo Rossi withdrew in the first round. Deportivo Alaves centre-back Facundo Garces was announced as the latest addition to the national football squad under head coach Peter Klimowski. The Football Association of Malaysia (FAM) in a statement said the 25-year-old player is expected to bring quality, experience and strong leadership to a team working to strengthen itself and become the squad that Malaysians aspire to see. According to FAM, Garces, who has played in Argentina's top-tier league and recently completed a season with Deportivo Alaves in La Liga, has fulfilled all registration and eligibility requirements and is now available for selection by Klimowski. The statement said Garces is a player of great character, a composed defender, and one who brings strong personality. FAM added that Garces is extremely passionate about representing Malaysia and making the country proud. Garces also expressed his excitement at representing Malaysia. According to the statement, Garces has joined the national team's training camp during the current FIFA window and will be eligible for selection in the 2027 Asian Cup qualifier against Vietnam on 10th June. Inter Milan coach Simone Inzaghi is leaving after 4 years by mutual agreement. The club announced on Tuesday, as Italian media reported, Inzaghi is moving to Saudi Arabia. Both Inter and Inzaghi said the decision had been made at a meeting involving the coach and club president Giuseppe Marotta on Tuesday afternoon. The parting came just days after Saturday's 5-0 thumping by Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League final. Talk had already been swirling about his exit, and last month Inzaghi played down rumours about a 2-year deal with Saudi Pro League club Al Hilal worth €50 million. Italian media said on Tuesday this report had been confirmed. Inzaghi took over Inter in 2021 and had a contract until 2026. The 49-year-old guided the club to one Serie A title, Inter's 20th, and 2 Italian Cups. He led the team to 2 Champions League finals in the past 3 seasons but lost both. On track to repeat the treble heroics of 2010 just a few weeks ago, Inter ended the season trophyless after falling away in each competition. In its statement, the club said Inzaghi's management was characterized by great passion, accompanied by professionalism and dedication. In a separate statement, Inzaghi thanked Inter players, managers, staff and all the fans. Bruno Fernandes confirmed Tuesday he rejected a huge offer from Saudi Arabia to stay at Manchester United, saying he wanted to continue to play at the highest level. Reports said Al Hilal were willing to pay United up to €100 million for the 30-year-old Portugal international. The players said a transfer would have been easy with several Portuguese players already in Saudi Arabia, including Cristiano Ronaldo, João Cancelo and Ruben Neves. However, he said that he still wants to play football at the highest level. United endured their worst finish of the Premier League era, finishing 15. They also lost the Europa League final to Tottenham. United captain Fernandes was one of the few players to emerge with credit from a disastrous season, scoring 19 goals and making 19 assists across all competitions. United are expected to be busy in the transfer market as Amorim reshapes his underperforming squad. The club have already signed Brazil forward Matheus Cunha from Wolves and are being heavily linked with Brentford forward Brian Mbeumo. Departures could include Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, Antony and Alejandro Garnacho. Lionel Messi participated in Argentina's training session on Tuesday as the national team prepares for their upcoming World Cup qualifying match against Chile on Friday. Argentina, under the leadership of coach Lionel Scaloni, faces a challenging schedule with 2 crucial South American qualifiers in the coming days. The reigning world champions will first travel to Santiago for Friday's game against Chile, followed by a home fixture against Colombia at Buenos Aires' Monumental Stadium on 10 June. After a 7-month hiatus from international duty, Argentina captain Messi rejoined his national squad for training on Monday. Messi, 37, last represented the reigning World Cup champions in November 2024. The current squad features 3 additions alongside Messi's return, all making their Argentina debuts. Defenders Kevin Lomonaco of Independiente, Mariano Troilo of Belgrano and 17-year-old forward Franco Mastantuono from River Plate, who has already garnered significant interest from prominent European clubs, received their first call-up for the national team. Argentina continues to lead the South American qualifying standings for the 2026 World Cup, having accumulated 31 points in 14 games with a record of 10 wins, 1 draw and 3 losses. And that concludes today's edition of World Today. In our top story, Malaysia and Guinea-Bissau to explore new avenues of cooperation. Till then, I'm Brendan Lepal from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Thank you for watching and take care.